But the eggs are extraordinary.
Oh, I bet. Cool.
There's one the other day that was so big, I'm not sure how it got out. Yeah. It's kind of looked like an hourglass.
Well, on that note, hello everyone, and welcome to season 2 of What Was I Drinking with Kate McClure and Jane Ferrari. What an exciting mission, I guess. We've got to season 2. I can't believe it. We've had 4 weeks off with a bit of R&R, and now we're right back into it again, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And I think we're going somewhere special for Where Was I Drinking? Is that right?
We are. Yep. For folks that are into music, we're going to Austin, Texas.
Which we both love Austin. That's a special place.
No, we do. Austin, Texas is it's the capital of Texas, and it's where the Capitol building is, right in the downtown area. And just south of the Capitol is, if you go down Congress Avenue, because that's where Congress is, from the hill downtown, you'll go past 6th Avenue, which is kind of the Bourbon Street equivalent for Austin. I mean, Austin's known for great music, great barbecue, but it's also the most extraordinary, food and wine community in Texas. And you head down South Congress, go past 6th Avenue, which is kind of as I said, the Bourbon Street of Austin.
Yeah,
over
amazing.
The river. Yeah, over the big bridge that's got all those squillion bats underneath that come out of an evening. And in the old working class district is the Continental Club. And it started in the 40s as a laundromat and was quite a nice, well-to-do neighbourhood just out of town, very leafy green, lots of trees. And in the 1950s, they turned it into a supper club. Very, very smart.
Yeah,
really elegant supper club. The word, I think, was swanky, which is probably, for Texas, it was pretty swanky.
Well, I was going to say, maybe, definitely would have fit there. Bit out of place.
Yeah. Well, they had murals of Venice and Paris and Rome on the wall, so it was quite the
quite new to Texas.
Yeah, quite the cruisy, swanky supper club.
Yeah.
And then the neighbourhood changed dramatically in the late 60s. Everybody went out to the suburbs, and so there was a whole dose of motels along there. Became quite a haven for druggies and prostitutes. The old Austin Motel is kind of like a low-rise adobe kind of building, and it became a bit rough and ready, and the Continental Club became an early opener, and their happy hour was 6 till 8 in the morning.
Is that when you were there?
and then the music scene really kicked in. Austin City Limits started. They started looking for music venues, and there was a lot of cowboy music played here. Yeah. Buck Owens used to play here. Anybody that's a big fan of cowboy music would know Buck Owens, Act Naturally. And then, of course, we had South by Southwest, the big music fest, started in the 80s, and the whole venue was bought by young music industry accountant, and they took it back to its former glory. So it's now the very cool McCool retro part of town, and the Austin Hotel has been completely renovated.
Yeah.
And it's back to its motor court glory. And they used to have, they went from Buck Owens and Wanda Jackson to Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. And now it's a range of everything from Southern culture on the skids, which is kind of alt country, to one of my favourite artists, which is Dale Watson. So generally one of the best bars. I think Playboy magazine, not something I generally read, but Playboy magazine. And
the articles, Jane, of course.
Put it on its top bars of the world list.
Yeah, right.
So if you like music, if you like retro, if you're in Austin, Tesoro Trading Company is just up the road, all the cool Latino Mexican metalwork. And diagonally over the road is one of the best taco places in Austin. It's Guero's. It's been there forever.
Yeah, right. I reckon I've been there.
Where was I
South by
drinking?
Southwest.
Where was I drinking? The Continental Club, Austin, Texas. Mark
What a
Davidson
spot.
from Wine Australia. If you're watching, you'll remember that evening we went and saw Dale Watson there, amongst other things.
Oh, excellent. That's great.
Yep.
That's awesome. Right, so we have a good lineup of wines here. Really fun 2 sets of wines from Brockenchack in Eden Valley.
Yep.
Pretty excited to be showing some wines from Eden Valley. It's a region, or a sub-region of Barossa that I love. And I think one of the things people don't realise, and we'll probably bang on about this a few times, but you know, Barossa is the regional name, and Barossa Valley and Eden Valley are the 2 valleys that make up the name Barossa. So often people just think Barossa is Barossa Valley, but it's actually made up of these 2 valleys, and Eden Valley is the more easterly and cool climate of the 2. So it's really nice to be able to showcase some of these wines to both a Cabernet and a Shiraz from this producer, which is great.
Yeah, and it's also worth remembering, viewers, if you're not from the Barossa, or especially if you're not from Australia, it's worth just bearing in mind that 1890 to 1915, the Barossa was the vineyard of the empire, and our number 1 job was to make fortifieds for the British Empire by the boatload. You know, tawny port, we can't call it port now, but of course they did then, tawny port, every style of sherry, brandy spirit. And so it's really quite unusual to have Shiraz and Cabernet from up the high country because, you know, the reds were grown those days for sugar. So to have really old vineyards up in the Eden Valley area, you know, it's really quite interesting because, you know, 60 to 80 years ago even, most of the red varieties were used to make fortified. So to have these gorgeous old Shiraz vines up in the Eden Valley is actually, you know, almost against the grain, and they're really jumping out of their blocks of late, particularly the 2016s. That's one to watch.
Yeah, which is great. So do you want? Should we have a little taste of? Should we start with the Cabernet, the 17, the Miss Bronte?
Yes, I would. 17s. I quite like this. It's got some really nice concentration. Probably one of the best kept secrets about the Barossa is Cabernet. Everybody
totally
knows Shiraz, everybody knows Grenache, and of course Mataro is a fantastic 3rd string for the Barossa.
And featured so heavily in season 1.
Yeah, we kind of cracked onto
accidentally
it by accident and looked pretty good in the end.
Yeah.
But Cabernet from our region is actually a really nice piece of work, and that's probably why there's so many nice clarets made up here too. But you know, there's a little patch of Cabernet down by Crown Village, which is next to Charlie Milton on Cronbrook Road. That's like dairy milk chocolate. It's just gorgeous, and this is like the filling for chocolate. It's got a really lovely berry intensity about it. It's been very elegantly handled in the oak department. And I hazard a guess, I don't know for sure, and it'll be good that we're talking to the winemaker tonight.
Yeah.
I hazard a guess, and I'd say it has been, if not cold soaked, it's been concentrated a bit, because it does have not just a little bit of cassis black currant, but it's got that lovely lifted kind of almost rhubarb character to it. It's that really lovely sweet but aromatic sweet.
Yeah, so, I think the concentration, you called it in the first bit there, to me, it is a supremely concentrated Cabernet. Those flavours are really intense. Like, it really jumps out of the glass with a beautiful palate weight. It's quite silken and lovely, with a really nice finish and some strong acidity there that just keeps it lingering too, which is really cool.
which is why I chose my meat match tonight from our fabulous sponsors in the main street of Angaston, the Barossa Smokehouse Butchers. Thank you, Pete, Steve, and Kyle. I'm going to do something new. This is kind of like having a drone in your dining room.
Instead of having the food fall off your plate.
Correct. So this is an
It's called progress, people.
This is an experiment. I've got to find it now.
You can see your hand.
Is that it? Have we got it?
It's ish. It's a lot of table and a lot of hand.
There we go.
There you go. Sort of.
This is low budget television, folks. That is a Hutton Vale lamb loin chop. That is a Hutton Vale French cutlet. Lamb producers to the stars out the back of Angaston towards Cainton. And that, folks, is Brussels sprouts dosed up with garlic, butter, single smoked bacon from the boys at Barossa Smokehouse Butchers. And I've included a little bit of mandarin zest.
Oh, with the Brussels sprouts.
Yep, mandarins are absolutely fabulous at the minute. And it really cuts through the fat, and it was just lovely because that single smoked, double smoked bacon the boys make is pretty tasty. So
that just reminds me, I think now you can regularly get Hutton Vale lamb at the Smokehouse Butchers. I think they're a regular provider now, which is amazing. So not only are they're our Saucy Sauce sponsor, but they are an exceptional producer of lamb, and now you can also get that there. So yay to them.
And I was down the street the other day and talking to Caitlin Angus, and she was talking about I have to follow this up, so stay with us this season, folks. They hang the lamb a different way. It's kind of called like a relaxed loin. Or
you're quite right. They do. Yeah. It's butchered. It's hung differently, hanged differently, and butchered differently. Yeah.
Yeah. So stick with us, folks, because we're going to investigate that a little bit further. But it's tender as.
It sure is, and that's exactly why it's done. Yeah, it's really cool, actually.
And it's just, I think, that cabinet. With that concentration and that smart acid, it's just going to cut through the fat on the lamb loin like a nice free butter. So I'm really pleased with my first meat match of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really cool, we saw a Cabernet out of Eden Valley last time too, but we're seeing more of them out of Eden Valley, which is great. And they are only made in, exceptional years. It might not be something that these wineries can make every year. So I think when you see them, you're going to get something pretty special because it has had to rely on a great vintage to be able to be produced. So you've got already a confidence there, I suppose, where it's going to be pretty decent. Great. Now we do have Darren, who is one of the family members of Brockenchack, waiting in the wings. And Joe Irvine, who's the winemaker, waiting in the wings. Shall we have a taste of the Shiraz and then bring them in to talk about both of the wines?
Well, I think we should let the viewers know that it's the first time we've actually Zoomed two other people in. So with season 2, we are breaking new technical ground.
Well, we think we are. We're not sure if we can do it yet.
We plan to.
Yeah.
Then, folks, if you don't remember anything else from tonight's show, 2016 from the Barossa is going to be very smart for Shiraz, Grenache, and Mataro.
Yeah.
That it's emerging as a very powerful piece of work.
Yeah.
Vintage and with some pretty generous tannins and nice length to them. So you heard it first here, a little bit of early nod. 2016's good value everywhere.
And I think they'll be great wines to put down too, because they will have that beautiful acid length and tannin structure. That they will be wines for collectors. You can get an affordable bottle of wine and put it down from the 16 vintage. You're going to do quite well out of it in the coming years, which is awesome. There's a real elegance on this wine, isn't there, already? Like the palette way is so pretty and elegant. It's great.
It's quite chunky in the fruits though too. You know,
It certainly packs it in there. Yeah.
it's got quite chunky in the fruits. It's kind of like one of those cans of, there's a whole dose of different cans of stew, and some of them are really ordinary, and then some of them are real. It's like pies. Some of those steak pies are pretty ordinary, and then you get one that's like the chunky steak and mushroom, and it really is tasty. And this is the chunky pieces of fruit one. Mm-hmm.
I love the palate weight of it. It's lovely.
And they're old vines up there. It's beautiful country out there. I went out to have a look, and it's literally between Cainton and Mount Mackenzie out there behind Anguston. If you take the road to the Collingrove turn-off, that'll take you out to Sawpit Gully Road, and you can tell Sawpit Gully Road because there's an old saw blade on it. Very easy to find. But beautiful big gum and granite country out there. It's just stunning.
It sure is. It is so different. So you're in. You feel like you're in a really different place with those beautiful old gums and that. Oh, it's absolutely stunning. There's a real concentration of great wineries actually, just in that one little patch too.
There's a spot where when you're coming back to Anguston, as you come back from Sawpit Gully Road, you head down, and it's actually like going into a tunnel of red gum. It's really, it's lovely. So yeah, well, let's.
Shall we try and bring them over?
You're in charge.
Get ready, Darren and Joe. We're coming for you.
I just find the talent. It's your job to do the technical stuff, the wizard stuff.
Don't tell people that.
What's that? The wizard stuff.
I'm so exposed. And I don't know why you'd pick me to do the technical stuff. This is not my area of expertise.
But I'm still on the wireless. I'm still on the wireless up here on the hill.
You're not streaming? Okay. I can see your names, but I cannot see the people. Do you have your videos up, guys?
I hope so.
Oh, we've got audio.
I can hear you. I just can't see you.
All right.
And Joe, I can neither see nor hear you.
Okie doke. Have you got a join with video, Darren?
There you are.
Happy days. Happy days. Briefly.
Yep. How you going?
Good. How are you doing?
Really well. Nice to meet you, Kate. Jane.
Likewise.
Good to see you again.
Darren zooming.
Thanks for joining us.
Darren's zooming in from a different time zone. He's zooming in for the Sunshine Coast, Queensland.
How's the weather up there?
Oh, it's pretty cold for Sunshine Coast. It's about,
What, 20?
It's about 20 degrees.
Yeah.
Got my jumper on to put later.
Yeah, when you have to go outside into that fresh, brisk air.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, now that you've joined, Darren, before we go any further, can we just do a massive shout out? All of us have got mates down in Melbourne. Just want to send a massive shout out. I got Jill and Gab down there. They're all doing it pretty tough, and they're zoomed in this afternoon because they're a captive audience pretty much. But just want to send a shout out to all our mates in Melbourne, Victoria, doing it tough. Look, we're thinking of you. So there you go.
Yeah, cool. I agree.
Well said. Well said. Hi, Joe.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. We've now got 4 people on our Zoomy Wine Chat show thingy.
Joe's zoomed in from a different time zone as well. She's over past Newry.
Oh, gosh. I'm surprised the cable went that far. This is great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Darren, you're with the Brockenchack family. Do you want to give us just a bit of an idea about the jigsaw puzzle and the name?
Yeah, easily. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were very passionate about the Brossa from the day I met their daughter. Trevor was very passionate about wine. When I first met him, he said to me, "Oh, nice to meet you. Would you like a drink?" I said, "Oh, that'd be nice." He said, "Do you want a beer or a wine?" I said, "I'll have a beer." He said, "Oh, how about I get you a wine?" And I was exposed to this Cabernet. And I thought I could get into this. This is pretty nice. Bought some of my own wine and realised that my budget and and what good wine was about was two different things. And I fell in love with Cabernet from that day. And Trevor, through his construction company, very passionate builder. Again, he only got introduced into wine when he was in his late 30s, mid 30s, and got exposed to the Barossa Valley. And from that day forward, he was doing trips 2, 3, 4 times a year just to source wine and a massive cellar, and went on to purchase the Tanunda cellars. And from there, he always thought it'd be great to grow old and slow down and live on the land.
No one wants to grow old, Darren.
Oh, he's old. He's old and cranky.
It's not a choice.
But he's
How
passionate.
rude.
He's very passionate.
He certainly hasn't slowed down.
No, and that's the thing. So he bought a vineyard to grow grapes and retire gracefully, but that's not the way my father-in-law does things. He come up with the idea of owning his own winery as well as the vineyard, and my mother-in-law came up with the idea of the 4 grandchildren, because the vineyard became a haven for the kids in the younger days when they were, Mac and Jack, I'll say the name Brockenchack is actually Bronte, Mackenzie, Charlie and Jack, which are the 4 grandchildren. And Trevor and Marilyn had 2 daughters, Trudy and Susan, and they both had 2 sons. Those boys are both 19 and the girls are both 17 at the moment. But they started going down to the vineyard when they were 7 and 8, and the girls were even younger. And it was a heaven for boys. Like Trevor had motorbikes and shooting and rabbits, and it was, go light a fire up on the hill back in winter when you could. And the boys loved it. So it was always, I'd tell a story quickly about when I was in America doing a tasting, quite a large dinner, and I told the people that when Mac and Jack were having smoko around doing vintage, and Trevor overheard Mac at 9 years old say, "Now, Jack, you move down here and become the winemaker, and I'll travel the world like my dad and sell the wine." And all the Americans said, "So your kids were 9?" And I said, "Yeah." And they smoked. And I went, "No, smoko. You've got to be very careful when you...
I make them sound tough. Yeah, they smoke.
Yeah,
Sure.
So that's where Brockenchack was formed back in 2008. We held back one little parcel of wine and got that made into Jack Harrison. And Trevor realised that the grapes we had were unbelievable and fantastic. And so he said, let's create something bigger.
And that first vintage in 2008, that was like teeny tiny, wasn't it? Like 37 dozen or something. Yeah, wow.
Barrel. Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you still have some?
No.
Oh, no.
I say that with a smile.
Yeah. You've enjoyed that over the years.
Yes.
Does it get a little bit, with all the names and this is Miss Bronte and then this one's Jack Harrison, is there a display of favouritism of the grandchildren? So there's like, my favourite one is this one, therefore my favourite grandchild gets it.
No, well, not really. Like,
Gotta be careful.
Mackenzie's the oldest of the grandchildren, so he got the Riesling named after him because they're the oldest vines. Jack.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, Jack is by far the most sort of robust and sort of out there. He's full on right in your face, and so's the Jack Harrison Shiraz. The zip line Shiraz is used to have a zip line up the back of the property that went for about 50 metres, and it was a nice smooth ride, and so the zip line was and that's what the wine was. So the Cabernet has always been my favourite. So unfortunately my daughter sits on top of the shop.
That's right. Oh, that's good then. That worked out well.
Mm. Hey, while you're talking about the Cabernet, I was talking earlier about the concentration in it. Just really like the fruit. Can we talk to Joe? Where's Joe?
Hey.
Joe. Now, Joe, you're making the wines for Brockenchack, but you also got your own brand, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got my own Levrier by Joe Irvine brand, as well as making wines for a fair few people around the Barossa and inside a South Australian state.
Yeah,
We might have to talk to Jo about her brand in another season, Jo.
You've actually
yeah,
worked across one of mine before with the Kyara.
Kyara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the first ever
First
episode
season.
when it was 20 minutes and the food match was homemade sausage rolls, and
Correct.
we didn't zoom anybody in. Look how far we've come.
We're
Yeah.
so fancy.
But
So
Jo,
we're getting on there.
Jo, how do you catch all that fruit in that Cabernet?
That Cabernet is actually, 2017 was actually a big vintage. And there's two separate vineyards on Trevor's property. One is quite a high altitude, around about 350 metres above sea level, one vineyard, and the other vineyard is probably about another 50 metres lower. So we get a bit of a combination of the two. We get a little bit cooler concentration and we get a little bit more of the warmer concentration. So the two put together have a synergy, and that's how I put the two together. And initially we've done them as a Miss Bronte blend, but in the future we actually have one where we just take the vineyard from the cooler climate, which is becoming a reserve.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Is there that much difference, Jo, just in 50 metres, or just the different site? Because we don't talk a lot about terroir in the Barossa, and we should.
We
oh
should.
my gosh, should.
But think of it, I made Barossa, Eden Valley wines for a long time, as you know, with my past history being an Irvine. And having been brought up and bred in the Eden Valley side of things, the soils are so different. So even within 50 metres within the same vineyard home, the soils are a lot leaner the higher up you go. So even 50 metres makes a big difference to the topsoil. So you end up having very, very little topsoil on the top vineyard of Trevor's, and you have a little bit more topsoil down the bottom. So you can actually only have about 4 or 5 metres of topsoil, 4 or 5 centimetres of topsoil in the high vineyard. And the lower vineyard has about 10 centimetres worth of topsoil. So the flavours are very different. And not only that, the one that's 50 metres higher ripens later, even though there's such small difference in distance. It's the altitude that makes a difference.
And with we were saying earlier that you've had a bit of an elegant hand there with the oak. Obviously, you've popped a platform in there for the fruit to sit on, not a dominating character. How do you go about that with Eden Valley Cab?
Eden Valley Cab, most of my wines that I deal with, make from Eden Valley, are French oak dominant, which is a lot lighter in style, more elegant oak. And the oak that I use is actually usually 3-year seasons. So it's very, very much an elegant. And Trevor's very good in the fact that he understands this, of how we're doing the winemaking, and gives me lots of toys to play with. So having a good French oak background complements the natural acidity of the soils in Eden Valley.
Actually, just talking about toys, we might just cut back to Darren, because Trevor's got that massive jolly wraparound truck thingy. What's that, Darren?
We did a trip when the boys graduated from high school. Trevor took the family on a bit of a trip to the States, and it was a bit of a fact-finding mission into Napa Valley and Sonoma. And also then on the way back, we stopped off in Hawaii for a couple of days, and all these big, massive trucks. And Jack was straight into Trevor's ear. Jack is he's born and bred on the Sunshine Coast, but he's certainly well and truly inbreded into as a Barossa local now. He's been there for 2 years, going on 2 years now. And he loves his trucks, and he said kept saying to Trevor, "You need a bigger truck. You need a bigger truck." So Trevor fell in love with a big 350, and I said, well, when they actually bought it, the funny thing was neither of them could drive it because you needed a light rigid license.
Yeah.
So it sat in the yard for 6 months before anyone could drive the damn thing. And then when he does drive it, he's got to drive around for 2 hours around the Barossa to find a park that's big enough so he can park it. So,
well, Brockenchack's just taken on the major sponsorship role for the Anguston Football Club, so he'll have a nice big spot to park it out the front there.
Just give him 2 parks, boys. Just give him 2 parks.
Both Jack and Mac are his biggest fans, his grandchildren. They love him to death, but their favourite nickname for him is Showbag. He's not worth $2 and he's full of shit. You got to carry him all day.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous ground with the father.
Oh my God, that's
he's probably listening. I'll cop it. I'll cop it
Oh,
when he gets.
Yeah, you will.
I've just had Jack for 2 vintages here at the winery, and he's a real personality to reckon with. He's just like his grandfather.
Oh, that's excellent. And is it Jack is he sort of being groomed into taking on that winemaking role? Is that the plan for the family?
Eventually, look, it's entirely up to Jack what he wants to do. He's passionate about the land, and he's very passionate about the vineyard itself. Yeah. And if he falls into that realm where he wants to make wine, and he's under great tutor through Jo, she's teaching him all the right techniques and showing him the fundamentals of everything. And on our vineyard, our viticulturist is Joel.
Machos.
No, not Joel. It used to be Joel Machos. It's Joel Knight, and they've created a fantastic relationship. They're just 2 very dry characters that get along very well. They've just spent the last 2-3 months out there pruning together. And if Jack wants to go down that road of winemaking, that'd be fantastic. But if not, I'd say he'll be taking on a vineyard manager's role. Because he just loves the Barossa. He honestly does.
Plus, he's just put some Angus cattle on the place, so we're going to get great steaks down the track.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. He's got a little baby calf that he's adopted, and it's nicknamed. Yeah. He's already named it T-Bone. And, but it follows him around like a dog, a little puppy dog. So he's, but his Jack's father's parents, they own quite a large cattle property up here in Queensland, out from not Roma, sorry, it was I forget the name, west of Bundaberg, and very large cattle property. So it's in his blood, and he loves cattle, and he's loves the Barossa.
Well, that's going to love that Shiraz. Hey, with the Shiraz, what's the story with Shiraz from the Eden Valley, Jo?
Shiraz from Eden Valley it takes on a different persona, I believe, than ones from Barossa floor, because you've still got those same influences of altitude, you've still got the same influences of soil, you've still got the influence of the fact that usually Eden Valley is about 5 degrees cooler than the Barossa floor in temperature, and so what you get is a lot of wines that are quite elegant but with power. So they've got the power behind them, but they have the elegance and a natural acidity that you don't tend to get in the Barossa floor, because through the fact that the Eden Valley soils are actually got a low pH, which means they actually have a natural high acidity. That creates the backbone for the Cabernets and the Shiraz and most of the wines, including the whites in the Eden Valley. So it's that backbone, and the other components on top of it, you get a lot more of your red berry fruits rather than your dark, very but black fruits that you get in the Barossa. So they complement each other, and so they become more of an elegant style rather than your bigger, higher alcohol, maybe Barossa styles.
They seem to be a bit more of the coffees and less of the licorices.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I find I myself personally, I prefer Eden Valley fruit to make things because I find them far more complex than Barossa. But I mean, I'm gonna get a hell of a lot of Barossa winemakers telling me I'm full of, you know, whatever. But
I'm not going to say mine.
I enjoy making fruit. I enjoy the complexities of Eden Valley, and Barossas are just a little bit easier to make the wines. I think Eden Valleys are just a little bit more thought has to go into them.
So Jane mentioned how 2016 is shaping up to be a cracker of vintage.
Fantastic.
When that fruit came into the winery, could you see that? Like, could you see it in the vineyard? Could you see all the stars aligning, all the flavour development, everything just working together?
In 2016, it was a little cooler than some of the other vintages that we've actually had in the recent parts. So we had really good rains in later 15, and so the vintage was a little bit cooler than we've had, and of course that meant that the vintage ripening was a lot slower because it didn't have the higher temperatures, and then of course this retains this natural acidity in the wines, which we don't have to interfere with. I'm very much a minimalistic winemaker. Let's just deal with anything that might be an issue and leave the rest of it to work itself. So this one actually, because the fruit came in a lot cooler than normal, we didn't have to chill it down, which meant that you could actually sit it on, before the fermentation started, it actually took a little bit longer. So you get, as Jane said, a lot more of those berry fruits sitting in the juice a lot longer before the fermentation starts.
Definitely.
So you get a lot of those lovely red berry characteristics, and the thing about 16 is, what I'm seeing from all of the 16 wines is that they're going to be wines of longevity as well, because there's not a lot of intervention to try and cope with a lot of the things that we'll deal with during vintage. I mean, 2018 was so damn hot for 15 days. By the time you actually got the fruit in from the vines, it was already starting to be so cooked that we had nothing that we could. Chilling it down didn't really make much difference, but 16 was fantastic like that because it was just so cool. It was a winemaker's dream of a year, actually.
And of course you got that option too, Joe, with your place having just been out there. You got that large number of small tanks where you can keep all the hot parcels separate.
Correct. So what we do is we can break things down when they are in a warmer climate, and we can just fill, you know, more smaller fermenters and chill them down a lot quicker than you would if a larger fermenter where it takes a lot longer to cool down. So 16 vintage was a classic, but 18 vintage we had to split them.
And I guess the point you want to be making here too is that even though 18 was warmer and slightly more challenging in that regard, there are techniques you can do in the winery that still create these beautiful wines.
Correct. Correct.
So it's not, you know, all is not lost. It is still a beautiful vintage, but you just treat it differently, and you've just got to, as a winemaker, work a little bit harder.
And over 30 odd years of making wine, and after becoming a nurse for, you know, 15 years before that, you know, you learn things, and every vintage gives you some different perspective on how you're going to handle things. When you've been a winemaker for 20 years, you can remember the vintages that were good vintages. You can remember the hot vintages. You can remember the cooler vintages. You can remember the small vintages, the large vintages. You can name a year, and I can tell you what the vintage weather was like.
Yeah.
But isn't that nice that our baseline in the Barossa is usually good or great? You know, because you can remember the really rubbish ones because there's not that many of them.
Yeah, luckily we are very blessed, and you know, the things that I enjoy is the challenges every year. You think, yeah, this is going to be okay vintage, but then you get shoved a curveball, so you deal with it. So you just
vintage is a vintage,
but we're still,
they're just not the same, are they? You've got to do different things each time.
Still easier here than doing it in the Hunter, I reckon.
That's the beauty of
well, they got the
making
humidity up there.
Yeah. So, you know, the Brockenchack wines are a joy to actually
Mm.
make, from the fact that I have a very good custodian that believes in the vineyard and believes in my winemaking and all of those things, which is, you know, a winemaker's dream.
Yeah.
The biggest thing there, ladies and everyone listening, is that Trevor believes in making sure that what we want to produce in the bottle is wine that's approachable and drinkable. And that's the beauty of what Jo does. She makes that wine so drinkable and easy to drink. And that's the comment we get every time we do tastings and events, and they can't believe how approachable and easy drinking the wine is. And through the vineyard culture and what we do through the viticulture and the winemaking process, and Jo delivers on that every time, and that's testament to Jo and to Trevor for investing in giving Jo, the, like she said, all the toys to play with, because he wants to make sure we don't make this wine to go into shows to make sure we get all the medals and all the bells and whistles and say, look at us. Our marketing dollars are in the booze, and we make sure we get it around to as many people as we can, and they love it. So,
hey, Darren, this is not the top of your Shiraz tree, though, is it?
No.
You got one. Just give us a quick buzz on the next one up. The William.
The William Frederick. That's named after Trevor's father, who owned a farm in Beenleigh in Queensland there. So he's a farmer background. And Harch comes from German heritage and Lutheran background. So that's where that connection. Yep. That's where Trevor has that connection. He feels that there has always been that connection drawing him to the Barossa. And the William Frederick is, like Jo can talk more about the technical stuff, but again, it's cropped. It's cropped less, and it's basically has more time in brand new French oak. It's the best of the best. It's the smaller parcels. It's smaller berries. It's more concentrated fruit.
Correct.
Older vines. It's just something that it's got a. We were pretty well when Trevor first bought out and we put the price tag on it. There was a lot of people turning their nose up and scoffing at us and telling us we're crazy with what he was doing. But Trevor, again, he believed it, and he said, no, I know this is, it's like when he planted Pinot Noir in bloody Eden Valley. He said, no one likes it, I'll drink it all myself. So, yeah, he's...
I like that idea.
He's on his own there.
He's an entrepreneur.
I want to have a look at that one.
The William Frederick, the William Frederick is just that wine that once it's something that once you pour a few glasses, it intoxicates the whole room with the bouquet and the fruit that comes out of the glass. So it's amazing. Yeah.
What's the production, Darren?
I think we do something like, I think it's about 60 dozen.
Yeah.
60, there's very small parcels, and I think we've already sold out there. We're about to release the 216 to all our members, and I think we're just about sold out. It was 4 years in the making, but I met a guy had the Wine Australia stand. I was in the Barossa bar, and we were allowed to show 2 wines at Wine Expo in Hong Kong. And this guy tried the William Frederick, and I think it was 2 years or 3. Yeah, 2 years later, he said, "I'd like to buy some." And he bought a 6-pack, and now he's employed a wine distributor to buy it all in, so he can buy it off his mate. So.
That's excellent. And on that, I don't want to go without mentioning how people can come and buy these wines. So the Miss Bronte is $28 for the Cabernet Sauvignon. Is that right?
Correct.
And the Jack Harrison is $60. A smash for $28, and $60 for the Jack Harrison. And Jo, just on that, before we talk about where they can find it, how long do you think the Jack Harrison in particular will lay down? Because I think an investment in a wine like this is really going to offer you something quite special in maybe 10 years or longer. What's your expectation of that?
It varies with vintage, of course, as per normal. But the Jack Harrisons are actually made for 10 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
They've got the acidity behind them. They've got the fruit. They've got the elegance. They've got the oak.
Yeah.
You know, when one good thing about Trevor is he actually listens and says, we're going to put this wine down. So it's actually bottled 18 months before 12 to 18 months before some of these are actually released. So, you know, some of these wines are, you know, they're brutes when you actually look at them after bottling, but they settle down really nicely.
Yeah. And I mean, that you could drink that now very happily.
Huge cellaring potential, and the William Frederick, the top of the range.
Even more.
I would bank my life on the fact you could actually get 15 to 20 years minimum.
Nice. That's so exciting, isn't it?
They're yummy, aren't they?
Yeah. They really are. They're very good.
There's a pretty smart Chardonnay in there too, just quietly, folks.
Oh, yeah. That's the one. But
might have to drop some at my door.
Sleeper. That's a little sleeper, that one.
It's a very smart little Chardonnay, little pears and Granny Smith apple Chardonnay going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people want to get some of this beautiful wine that we've been talking about, is the best way for them to go directly to the website? I would imagine, you know, and we're encouraging everyone to go directly to the wineries because you are helping them out significantly. So hop onto the website. I'll put the link on What Was I Drinking Facebook page. And, you know, drop the guys a line. Certainly join their mailing list. I know Darren just mentioned then that they're about to release the top-end Shiraz 16. Is that right, to the mailing list?
No, we've got a membership, and it's basically all sold to the membership. So it's virtually all sold out. So
can anyone join the membership?
Oh, yeah. We've got a unique membership called our Cousins. Because we're a family-owned vineyard, we come up with the concept of a cousins, where you actually join. You get 12 bottles of Jack Harrison a year if you're a cousin, and you actually get your name on a vine. So you've got your own patch of the Barossa. You get a photo of it when you come down and visit. We do once a year, we do a long lunch in the vineyard. And,
great lunch, by the way.
Oh, it's a
do you go,
lunch.
Joe? Can people come and talk to you?
Yeah.
Oh, I steal the show for at least an hour and a half.
Oh, people love it.
That's just the exotic dancing.
I was just about to say that.
Exactly.
I mean, Jane gives an interpretive dance of that vintage.
Right.
It's great to see.
The best thing is to come and visit the vineyard. Trevor's down there at Cellador. We've got a B&B there.
You've got accommodation at Brockenchack.
Yeah. Like I said, Trevor's an entrepreneur. He doesn't do things by halves. And it's all included. The vineyard tour. You get Jack's dog Phoenix will lie all over you. He's a big bull mastiff.
He slobbers a lot, but it's not like that.
No, you can keep that. I love when you said earlier that Trevor, you know, thought he'd find this beautiful patch of vineyard and, you know, take a slow down approach. No, you don't. I mean, no one ever does that anyway.
They had people booking out on Monday morning and had another couple coming in Monday afternoon to the B&B, and he was running around down to getting sheets and doing beds and helping with the cleaners.
Good on him.
And it never stops, and he loves it. He
but
loves it.
You can book in for a tasting too, can't you, Darren?
Most definitely. Yep. Just ring up. We're on a dirt track, but the destination, half the fun's getting there. Like Jane said, the tree tunnel.
Yeah.
The tree tunnel. You get it's big gum and granite country out there, and you can tell the terroir is, and that's where we talk about that Cabernet. You can smell the bit of the eucalypt on the nose. It's bursting out of the glass. The Riesling, the steeliness in the Riesling's coming out, and it's. Yeah, I could talk all day about it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of an under-the-radar brand. If you think you know the Barossa, you need to take a trek out the Sawpit Gully Road.
Yeah. There's a real pocket of great producers in that little area where you guys are, which I think is, you know, it's untapped at this point, but you're going to go far, and the people who are smart are going to know from now on.
Oh, yeah. And the history of the Eden Valley out there, like our vineyard, the Cellador was once a butcher shop, and to respect the whole thing, after it turned out of a butcher shop, it might have actually become a little 1-bedroom brothel, and now it's our cellar door.
We're still researching that.
We're still researching that, but that's
and
what
may very well have been a sly grog shop as well.
Yes. So it's a checkered history, but now it's like I said, it's a unique part of the Little Eden Valley, and all the vineyards out there in Eden Valley. There's our neighbours, Poonawata and a couple of other guys out there that are doing great things.
Great things, I agree.
Yeah, we're just that little bit further out, but I mean, like, get out and see some really unique gems and unique little parts of the Eden Valley.
And really importantly, support them locally.
Yes.
Go directly to their websites. These guys are working really hard, delivering beautiful wine. So please go out there and tell them your support. You know, let them know you saw them on What Was I Drinking Season 2, Episode 1.
That's right. Thank you.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. And hey, thanks for zooming in, Joe, too.
Yeah, great.
Thanks, Joe.
Love it.
All the way
Good
from
to see you, Joe.
Thanks, Trevor.
Fair enough, Darren, but that's okay.
Darren. Thanks, Darren.
No worries.
Right, I better go and feed my children some dinner now.
Yes.
Well, they're obviously hungry. They're hanging around.
I know.
You're a terrible mother.
Jane's got some lamb chops there you can give him.
I have.
Send
And
them
Brussels
over to
sprouts with bacon.
Oh, yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Angus
Thanks,
has
ladies.
told me he's going to get himself dinner. That should be a
Oh,
disaster.
well done. Well done.
Hey, and thanks a million. And next week, we're going to try the big technical Zoom across the Tasman. We've got our first trans-Tasman Zoom in with Mike Brockenchack from Kumia River, the Chardonnay King of New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So,
Good luck.
that's pretty exciting. There's 3 single vineyard Chardonnays we're going to be tasting.
yeah.
And I've got them sitting up here all ready to get chilled and have a little taste. So that is going to be, again, equally a brilliant little episode. So we're looking forward to that. But thank you to both of you for joining us.
Pleasure.
And for sharing your beautiful wines with us.
Pleasure.
A great start to season 2. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brockenchack. Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Joe Levrier.
Thank you. Yeah, and go Levrier, go Brockenchack.
Yes.
Come out and visit the winery, and I'm sure we can point you in the direction of Trevor if you get lost at all down in that general direction.
He's not busy changing sheets in the guest house.
I'll get him to. Well, I might get him in there cleaning a tank or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. Him and Jack. Jack knows
Excellent.
how to do it.
That's great. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great night. See ya.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.